So about, I don't know, I think it's close to 20 years ago, I bought these metal stools from Lion, and they're pretty much like what you see here. And I went out and got my tape measure and took a few dimensions and thought that this might be a good little exercise to review together. So um, we might have to refer back to this slide in case I forget some of the measurements. But the first thing that I did is, I sat down and I took some measurements, and I drew some very basic geometry. So for the seat, I drew a rounded rectangle. I don't know if this is obscuring you, but there's a rounded rectangle. It's 14 inches square. It's got a 2 3/4 inch radius on the corners. And then there's a pattern of holes. So I drew those as a series of circles and squares. So you can see that I've even given myself some notes here. There's 4 of these, 16 of these, 8 of those, right? And then I took a careful look at the leg, which I've uh, elevated here just for reference. If I go back to what's going on in the original stool. So if we zoom in on the leg, you can see that up at the top here, the leg is kind of radiused. It's a piece of flat stock that is bent to be radius to the inside of the stool. And then a few inches down, it becomes a right angle. Um, it's just a 90-degree angle. That's an inch on each leg with a slight radius. And that's what it is for most of its length. And then when we get to the bottom, it transitions from this right angle to a circle. And in fact, if we go to the back of the leg here, I know that's super grainy, but you can see that that circle almost completes and closes in on itself. So this is obviously a flat piece of metal that's 2 inches wide that has been deformed at various stages in order to make this leg, right? So um, figuring that that is probably the case, I drew a series of 2D shapes. So here's a polyline. It's just an inch, as you can see. Oh, let me, sorry, other things I forget to do is turn on visualize. That might help as well. Yeah, there we go. So you can see over here that we've got an inch, and I've given it a little bit of a fillet. And then I've drawn this arc, and you can see that the arc length is 2 inches. Uh, so that's on the theory again that it's a 2 inch wide piece of metal, so it's going to deform itself. And then this same shape, that leg sort of kicks out at a slight angle, right? You see where I've drawn it here in 2D. It kicks out at a slight angle. So I've taken that same uh, angle, and I've gone ahead and displaced it out here by some amount that seemed right. And then I drew this um, most of a circle, and you can see I gave it 3/4 inch diameter. I think that's probably a little too much. So let's go ahead and fix that on the fly. Let's give it a 1/2 inch diameter. Um, and you can see that the arc length is a little too long, so maybe a 5/8 inch diameter is closer to being right. And maybe it sweeps out, I don't know, 330 degrees. So now we're getting close to um, a 1 inch length. And I'll go ahead and uh, rotate that. I'll find the midpoint of these two, and I'll go ahead and rotate that to this corner here. So Yeah, maybe not quite right, but close enough for today. So these are just 2D on the layer plane kind of geometry. You can see everything's real flat. And then I decided to improve on the design of the stool because I spent a fair amount of time sitting on it. And so I've figured out that if this is the top plane of the stool, I am going to want a circle that's about a 5-foot radius to create a little slight depression in the stool itself. And then finally, I came back and I measured the little rubber feet and I constructed this 2D geometry to represent uh, the foot. And you'll see how we assemble all that in a bit. So the takeaway here, everything is 2D at this point. So here's a view of the model in progress. And you can see I've already done some of this stuff. And let's get there from here. So I'm going to go back to my geometry layer and let's go to our dialog box with my 2D geometry. And let's go ahead and duplicate that layer. And I'll just call that my working model. And, that way, if I mess it up, we can go back to the original. So let's go ahead and start with the seat. So the seat, I think, is, yeah, it's about 1.5 inches thick. So I'm going to take that rounded rectangle, and for now, I'm just going to go ahead and under model, I'm going to extrude it, and I'll extrude it -1.5 inches. So the top of it is at ground plane, right? It'll eventually go up 24 inches. I may as well do that now. So I'm just going to do a move 3D command and move it up 24 inches. So now if we look at it, right, you can see that it's hovering over the plane. And right now it's just it's just a slab. That's fine. And so when I sort of sketched this out, I drew a sphere. And here's the 3D model menu, and there's a sphere. And I'm going to center it on the top surface of this extrusion and go ahead and draw that sphere, and I'll give it a radius of 5 feet. Right. And if I go to a side view here and back up, you can see I can move it up, say, I don't know, 4'11" and a half. Whoops. Little typo there. And we can zoom in and see how that's a bit too low. You can see it's kind of clipping the whole seat. That's not what I want. So I'll just move it up 1/8 of an inch. Maybe another 1/8 of an inch. Sure, let's go with that. Maybe move it down to 1/16. Okay, I'm happy with that. So now I'm going to take these two objects and do a simple under model, subtract solids, and I'm not going to retain the sphere. I'm done with it. So there we go. I've got my seat. It's got a nice little divot in it. And let's go ahead and make that hollow. And so what we're going to do there is we're going to use the shell command. So what the shell command does is it allows me to select a face or multiple faces and essentially hollow out my solid with the shell command. I'm going to give it a thickness of, I don't know, 1/16 is probably a little too heavy gauge, but for modeling purposes, we're just going to go with that. And I can either use my flyover tool to get underneath the stool, or if I don't want to do that, I can hold down the Option key, and you can see that when I hold down the Option key, I can highlight the bottom face of that stool. So the Option key lets me grab occluded faces. Of course, I could be doing this in wireframe mode, right? So I'll go ahead and click on that face, right? You can see it now remains highlighted when I clicked. And I'm just going to hit this little checkbox here. And you see this is now identified as a shell. And I can shell either to the inside, in other words, the void that's created is smaller than my solid geometry, or I can uncheck inside and you can see it grew a little bit by actually a 16th. So I do want it inside because I want the outside dimension to stay the same, right? So now if I peek underneath here, you can see it is nicely shelled. So I want to point out that the order of operations here is starting to be important, right? I don't want to extrude and then shell it and then hollow out the seat, because if I did that, I would have this hole that I would have to deal with. So I want to try to get my geometry to a certain point before I decide to start to shell it. So one of the things to think about is that actually this seat, if we go back to the original image, in the version that I have, well, this is a seat where it's a metal stool and somebody has like screwed on this, I don't know, it's probably some sort of masonite seat on top of the stool. I guess that might make it mildly more comfortable. And the version that I have of this stool, there are 4 separate bolt holes, not at the corners, for bolting on a seat. And those bolt holes aren't just holes, but there's actually a little recessed crater or divot so that the whatever fastener can be countersunk and be flush with the seat. So if we go back to our original geometry, right, that's what I've drawn here at these 4 corners. Right. So I'm going to go ahead and model those now and not wait. So let's go back to our other layer, our working model. It's right here. Right. I'm actually going to undo this shell, and the way to undo a shell is just to ungroup it. So Command U, and you can see that I've gone back to the solid subtraction. I'm going to go ahead and take care of that shell in a little bit. So let me go back to these holes. So there's an actual hole that's a penetration right through the steel, but then there's this sort of tapered cylinder that is subtracted from the seat, represented by these 2 circles. So I've got a couple of ways that I can do that. One is I could do what's called a multiple extrude. This is a very old operation in Vectorworks where you draw 2 or more profiles in plan. You do a multiple extrude, you define the height, and it gives you a profile from one to the next to the next. Probably easier to demonstrate than to describe. So that's under the model menu, multiple extrude, and I can give it an extrusion of whatever value. We'll say 1/4 of an inch, right? So if I look at it from the front, you can see that it's created this sort of tapered shape. But you can also see that each of these edges is kind of on a bias at an angle here, right? And the reason for that, if we double click this multiple extrusion, we go back to the original geometry that created it, you can see that these 2 circles, their control points don't line up. They're not both at the same point. So if I move this one to center right and I move that one to center right, you can see how now these little facets are all lining up in the preview. And that's a little nicer. So again, front view, right? And I can give it a negative value, right? Like that. That's fine. So So that's one way of doing it. I don't really like multiple extrudes because you can see that it's creating this faceted uh, kind of geometry. And I want my geometry to be as smooth as possible with as little sort of calculation. So I'm gonna undo all that because I want my two circles. Instead, what I'm going to do is a slightly newer modeling operation in Vectorworks. It's still pretty old. And that's called under model, not under tools, a tapered extrude. Now for a tapered extrude, I just need one profile, in this case, the circle, right? I can give it a height and an angle. And you can see that if I look at it from the side, it looks something like that. So that angle is 45 degrees. It's has a height of -1/4 inch. That seems, that's a little deep. Let's go with 3/16 just for fun. It's still 45, right? So if I go back to top plan view, here's my guide circle that I'm trying to get to. So I can just change this angle to say 30 degrees. And you can see now I'm getting real close, right? Again, front view. I've just made that little pan a little shallower, top view. So I'm just going to go with 30, right? I could keep playing with it an angle at a degree at a time if I was absolutely certain. But I just kind of eyeballed these dimensions anyway, so I'm just going to stick with the 30. Okay. So then if I go to my front view, you can see that that's inside a group of all that geometry that I created, my guidelines. So I'm going to cut it and exit the group, and I'm going to paste it in place. So it stays in the same place in 3D space. And again, if I go to front view, you can see it's down here on the floor. So I could go ahead and just move it up 24 inches if I knew that's how tall the stool was, or I could just select these two objects and under modify, align, distribute 3D, I can align the maximum, so to the maximum value. And if I zoom in here, you can see there it is. But I've got the bowl of the seat, right? So I actually probably want to move this down a little bit. That's probably too much. That's probably as good as it's going to get. Okay, I'm going to go with that. And I have 4 of these, so I'm just going to do a duplicate array. So under edit, duplicate array. And I'm going to do a circular array. I want a total of 4 of them, so that's going to be 3 duplicates. The angle is obviously going to be 90 degrees. My next mouse click is going to be the origin of that circular array. I could rotate the duplicates, no real need to in this case because it's perfectly symmetrical, so I won't bother selecting that. And I'll retain that object and keep it selected. So now I'll just click on the center. Boom. Now I've got 4 of them. If I look at that and shade it, you can't see them very clearly. All right. So now I'm going to have those selected and the seat, and I'm going to model, subtract solids. And you can see my little bolt holes are too low. I definitely underestimated or overestimated how deep that little bowl depression for the seat is. Not a problem because Vectorworks remembers the order of operations. So I can just double click on this solid subtraction, right? And edit the solid, and it gets me back to the original geometry. So I can just select everything except for the seat. So I selected all and then deselected the seat itself. So I have these 4 tapered extrudes. And then I'm just going to do a move 3D command, say a 1/16 of an inch at a time. Hey, look, they just popped up. And kind of inspect my model. Yeah, they're just barely flush with the surface. I'm happy. I'll edit the solid subtraction. And now Vectorworks has adjusted the subtraction so that now they've broken through. I'm going to take a second to have a sip of coffee and invite anyone to unmute themselves and ask a question if this is a good time for a quick question. Nope, nothing in the chat. All right, I'll keep going. Yep, go for it.
I was just going to say, Francois, that it neither here nor there because this is a demonstration, but it kind of looks like you have these holes not where they appear on your model. I may be wrong about that.
No, they're totally where they should be.
Okay.
They're not where they are in the photograph because I pulled the photograph off a catalog on the internet, but they
thought I
are.
saw some fasteners closer to the corners, but
Yeah,
never mind. Back to you.
I measured my actual stool that's downstairs.
Okay. You know more than me for sure.
Well, I know my stool. All right, so there we go. So now I want to shell this puppy, right? And you'll immediately see why. So I'll go ahead and go back to my shell command. You'll notice it remembers the thickness, right? So that's still there because that's the last thing I did. Once again, I can hold down the Option key and get the bottom of the seat, hit OK, and hit return, and it just shelled it. Hey presto. But do you see why I wanted to subtract the holes first? Because the shell command is giving me this nice sort of shape, right? It's sort of deforming the metal the way it would deform in a press. I'm going to undo this because there's one more thing I want to do before I shell. So let me go ahead and ungroup. That gets rid of the shell. These edges are a little too harsh, right? In reality, when the metal is deformed, it makes these inherent sort of fillets. So I'm going to do a fillet command before I shell. And that gives my edges a nice soft radius. So I'll click on the, where is it? Fillet edge tool, not chamfer edge. There it is. And I can, when I fill it, I can fill it either faces or edges, right? So I'm going to select faces. And so I'm going to select this face and hold down the Shift key to select multiple faces, right? And I can get all those in here, right? And I can even hold down the Option key and get the face on the bottom, right? So I'll hit return. And I don't know if you could see that, but everything is much smoother, right? It even found, because I hit this edge, it even filleted the bottom of the hole. Very nice. Now, because I did everything as one fillet operation and selected multiple faces at once, holding down the Shift key, whatever radius I assign here in the object info palette, Vectorworks is now calling this a fillet, right? Whatever radius I choose, it's going to apply to every radius, every fillet that was done and in this operation. So I could crank this up to 1/4 of an inch. And you can see that some of these are so tight that Vectorworks won't let me do it. So I'll just pick 0.1. There you go. It lets me do 0.1. So you see how everything filleted 0.1. I can try 0.2, but that's probably going to fail. Yeah, it won't let me do it. So it's kind of a little bit of trial and error to see just how much it will let me fillet this, right? So I'm just going to go with 0.05. That looks good to me.
So why would it not let you do that? I don't understand.
Because these over here, these are so close together that the two fillets are going to
overlap.
They're going to overlap, and Vectorworks won't let me do that. It just can't calculate that. It can do a 0.11. You can see how they're almost touching here. It'll do a 0.11. I don't think it'll do a 0.12. Nope. Oh no, it did an eighth. So it'll let me go to an eighth. But that's about it. Right, nice and soft. And because it's a NURB, because it's NURBS modeling, if I show you this in wireframe, you see there aren't a bunch of facets here. There's actually very few, relatively speaking, like maybe, I don't know, 30 or 40 curves that Vectorworks needs to calculate. As opposed to if I convert this to a mesh, I'll do this right now. Modify, convert to a mesh. I mean, it's a mess, right? So not only does this not look as good, ultimately, you can see can you see in the corner here, the kind of faceting that we're getting with the mesh? So not only does it not look as good, but actually it's computationally probably more intense. So let me undo that because I definitely don't want to mesh. So we're back to the fillet. And here's the nice thing about these kinds of Boolean operations where we're adding and subtracting and filleting and so forth. Instead of undoing the fillet, if I just edit group, that's command left bracket, I'm inside the fillet. You see there's the orange band around my screen, like when I'm inside a group. So it's just like a group, right? So now I can go and burrow one level deeper into this solid subtraction and edit group again. And now I'm inside the solid subtraction. So let's say that, Al's right. What if I drew these in the wrong place? So I'm just going to delete these three and move this one out, uh, you know, an inch. And I'll redo my duplicate array and exit and exit. And so it remembers all that. Well, now they're too low, right? They're buried in they're, they're buried in the seat. So I'm going to need to wireframe this, edit the solid, and select these and, move them up. Exit, exit, right? So that's kind of the beautiful thing about once you do these operations is you can the grammar of the object, so to speak, is preserved. Kind of the flow chart of all the operations, the decision tree that you made. And so you can just go and step back with the edit group and go back and adjust. So I could change the taper on these holes, for example, right?
Francois,
Yeah.
if you decided that a fillet on like the edge of the seat or whatever needed to be more, because you've chosen one radius on the fillet for
Yeah.
everything. Is there a way to go in and do that, to remove that fillet from there and then fillet it?
No, I'd have to undo my filleting and just do all of my 1/8 inch filleting in one operation and then do my 1/4 inch filleting in another operation.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Any other question, Francois?
Yeah.
The bottom of the holes seem to be solid. Are they supposed to not be solid so the air can go through them or whatever?
Yeah, we're gonna get to that.
Okay.
Yeah, that we're gonna drill at the end. We're getting this through the, whatever that machine is that takes a flat piece of metal and deforms it for us. Press, I guess. All right. But I actually do want the holes there. So there we go. So I think that's most of my seat right now. Let's talk about the legs. Um, oh well, what the heck? Let's finish the seat. Let's go ahead and add the holes since you brought those up. So I've got I'm gonna ungroup all this. I've got these, and I have 4 of these holes. Right. So I'll just once again do a duplicate array. I've got a keyboard shortcut for that. Boom. So now there are 4 holes here. And then I have 8 of these, and I have 16 of these. So I'm going to do a duplicate array again. Oops, sorry. There we go. So if I have 8 of them, that means I need 7 duplicates, and the angle between each duplicate is going to be whatever 360 degrees divided by 8 is, right? And once again, I want to keep those holes and next mouse click, right? Oh, I think I selected the wrong thing. Hold on. Let me undo. All right, let me redo. I want 3 of these 90 degrees apart, not 909 degrees. Great. And now I want that circle and this circle. And I want 7 of those 45 degrees apart. Hit OK. Oh, that got really weird. All right, let's just do it this way. There's something I'm goofing up, but do 8 of these here. That's good. And then we'll do 15 of these and 45 divided by 2, obviously. Great. And then I'll just go ahead and use my magic wand tool to select everything that's the same class and type. That'll give me every circle. I don't want those circles. And there's a great big circle out here that I don't want. So Command 6, there we go. And I'll just go ahead and extrude those. I'm just going to make them 30 inches tall. So in 3D, it looks like that. And then I'll just subtract those. Under Model, subtract solids. And in the stacking order in Vectorworks, the thing that was drawn last or is topmost in the stacking order will be subtracted from the thing that was drawn first or things that's bottommost in the stacking order. So subtract solids. And there we go. Something real funny's going on. Oh yeah, I forgot to shell my, that's funny. All right, no problem. So I got my order of operations wrong. I forgot to shell, right? So that's okay. I could undo that, or I could just go in here and take this fillet, right? And there we go. Let's see what happens when I shell that. Just this bottom. It does not like the shell. And that's probably because of this fillet at the bottom here. Didn't like that. That's cool. I'm going to go ahead and undo that. So now I've gotten rid of my filleting, right? If you find these little rods distracting, I can just turn them off with my visualization tool. They're still there. They're just invisible. So let's go ahead and do it the way Don asked, just because we aim to please. We're going to go ahead and fillet, let's say an eighth of an inch. Only this time I'm going to choose deselect select faces, so now I'm choosing edges. So I'm going to get this edge and I'm holding down the shift key so that I'm selecting all of these edges all the way around. Okay, and then I'll hit OK. And so now that's got a nice 1/8 inch radius. And then I'll go back to filleting and choose faces. And I'll choose this face and that face. And then each of these faces. Back up. Okay. And instead of an 1/8, let's do a 1/16 and hit OK. There we go. So now everything is a 1/16 except for that outside edge. And the bottom is a flat hard edge. So now I can go ahead and shell that, hit OK. There we go. Now we're happy. And you can see like when I shell this, the filleting comes through on the bottom of that punched opening. And of course, all those circles are still there. So if I edit the solid subtraction, it went ahead and still makes the hole, even though the class of the objects, the guide class I have is turned off.
So Francois, when you're making the holes, could you have not done the holes and shelled the seat first and then made the holes by subtracting solids and then filleting the holes?
Yeah, but that's a lot of extra work, man. I want to have as few steps as possible.
Oh, all right. Because then that way you wouldn't have the bottoms of the holes solid.
I don't have the bottoms of the holes solid.
Oh, what happened to them? Oh, because they got shelled.
No, because they got drilled.
Oh, right. Got it.
Because I've got the extrusions in there.
Yeah.
I think I've got an extra something. Yeah, this hole is too big. See that? My drill press operator went a little crazy. Do you see right there? I've got these two concentric holes. And so this over here, so that's easy. Again, Vectorworks remembers the circles that created the extrusion. So I can just edit group on this series of extrusions, go to top plan view. You see I've got this extra hole here, extra circle. Delete it, exit, and now all the holes are correct.
Francois, if you wanted to fillet the bottom edge now of that seat, is
Mhm.
would you do it now
Yeah.
or
Yeah, let's do it now because it's got some thickness to it, right?
okay.
So right, you guys are some precision modelers here. So I'll go ahead and select faces because I've got this little band that goes all the way around. Do you see that?
Mhm.
So I just selected that face rather than tediously selecting, I don't know, 16 edges and check. And that is too much of a radius. Go 0.06 and see if it lets me do that. 0.03. There we go. It let me do a 0.03. Yeah. I know, it's just a little bar stool. You guys are going crazy. Okay. So let's do the legs, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 2D geometry here that I, constructed for the legs. So that's this polygon, this arc, or polyline, this polyline, and this arc. And I'm going to modify and convert those to NURBS. Non-uniform rational B-splines. B stands for Bézier, the French engineer who came up with these back in the 30s. So it creates a group. I can enter the group and I can see that each of these bad boys is a NURBS curve. Okay. And if I show direction, I want them all to be pointing in the same direction. So they have a directionality, as do lines in Vectorworks or rectangles or whatever. Doesn't matter which direction they're going, just so you see that little red arrowhead, just so long as they're all going in the same direction, that's really all I care about. But these are flat. They're all on the same plane. So I'm going to go to a front view here. And in my quick commands, I'm going to see the rest of my model. So there's the seat, right? And there are my handy dandy dimensions. So I'm going to take this one. I'm going to take all three of these, but not the bottom circle. And I'm going to move those up 2 inches in space. And then I'm going to deselect that one and move these up 18 inches. And then finally, I'm going to take this arc and move that up 2 inches. Sorry, had to find the right control. Okay, so there we go. Not a problem. So now I've gone ahead and arrayed these correctly in space, that they're correct Z heights based on my little sketch here, which I can still see outside the group. And now I'm going to use the loft command, which is this command over here. And you don't have to do it with NURBS. You can do it with things other than NURBS, like lines. I find it works better with NURBS. And what loft command is it's basically a very fancy form of the tapered extrude that I showed you earlier. And so the way it works is this. I have 3 different modes: by rail mode, or by profile mode, by rail and profile, and by 2 profiles in a rail. So in this case, I'm just going to use the rail mode. In other words, I have a profile that I'm just going to, I think that's called profile mode. No, it's the no rail. Sorry, got my terms reversed. These are profiles, not rails. I can have nothing but profiles. I can have a profile and 1 rail, or I can have 2 rails. And they're just different kinds of geometries why these are appropriate. In this case, I'm just going to go with no rails, just a profile. So I'm going to click on this one and then click on that one. And where I click is actually important, right? If I click on the far edge, do you see how it made that loop? Because I clicked on this point here, and that's not what I want to do. So let me escape and start over. So I'm clicking from this corner to that corner to this corner to that corner. And why is it giving me that curve? Oh, never mind. I figured it out. All right. So you can see that it is giving me this nice little curve because that's what NURBS want to do. They want to give you these nice curvy things. But in this case, I want this leg to be straight. Not a problem. So I'm going to go ahead and hit my checkbox. And in this case, when I create a loft from these profiles, I get this dialog box before it commits to it. So the first thing I'm going to choose is ruled. And what that does is it makes all of these lines connecting these profiles straight instead of these sort of asymptotic or parabolic type lines, right? In other words, it makes them straight lines, not Béziers. I could make it closed, in which case it would give me a solid. Why would I want to do that? I'll just have to shell it. I can create a solid. I don't really need to be a solid. And you can keep the curves. So if I don't select keep curves, those curves are gone. And in the interest of being able to easily iterate and tweak the design, I want to keep my curves usually. I can throw them away later or put them in an invisible class or whatever. They're not going to be part of the object. I can hit preview if I want, but I'll just create this. So there it is. And what does that look like? Yeah. And if I go ahead and put that in the steel class, yep, it'll render with the right color. And if I rotate around this, you can see this actually kind of works. Looks the way it's supposed to. Now you're seeing these joints because of those curves, right? I kept the curves. Now, unlike additions and subtractions with a loft, you can't go back. I can't edit group on this loft and move, say, that curve down by 2 inches and then have it regenerate. So that's one thing that it won't do, is give you these kinds of sort of Boolean operations that you can go back and subtract, which is why I keep the curves, because I may want them. So in this case, I definitely want them because this thing doesn't start at the bottom lip of the chair. It actually goes up inside the chair. So I'm going to duplicate that and move it up, say 1.25 inches. Whoops. 1.25 inches. There we go. And now I'll go ahead and do the loft again, from here to here to here, just connecting the dots to here to there. And it remembers that last time I did a ruled, i.e. straight lined loft. So that's already selected. It remembers that I like to keep my curves, right? And I'll hit OK. And once again, I'll assign it to the right class. And we can go ahead and edit the group. Let's go to a top plan for front view, right? And it actually needs to be off the floor a little bit because it's got the little rubber foot. So I think that's probably about 1/2 inch. Yeah, that looks about right.
Francois, on the, when you added the additional arc at the top there,
Yeah.
did you have to undo the previous?
Yeah, I deleted
lofting?
it. I deleted it. It doesn't
Got it.
remember like the Boolean operations,
Okay, so you
unfortunately.
can't edit the loft.
No,
You didn't edit the loft. Okay, all
to
right.
edit the
all right.
loft, I've got to do the loft over again. This is why I keep my curves. Because
Yeah.
usually it's a bit of a trial and error sort of operation.
I see. So it was to have the curves available to then
Yep.
edit it later. Okay, got it. Thanks.
And it's you know, it's a group. So I don't think I'll be able to go ahead and shell this. I want to give this some thickness, right? So again, I'm going to use the shell command is going to give this some thickness. And I'm going to go ahead and edit that group, get into the group so that I can see everything all at once. So I'll select that. And you can see that some of these are individual faces. So I want to be sure and capture them all. So I'm holding down the shift key as I'm going through here, and I'm hitting everything all along the length of the leg. I think I got that one. All right. And I'll hit OK. And there you go. It gave it some nice thickness. And, you know, I can go nuts with the thickness. It won't let me make it. Yeah, it lets me make it an inch thick. Right. That's just silly, but just so visually you can see how this works. All right, so I'll just go ahead and exit that. I'll go ahead and let's go to a top view and let's go to a bottom view.
Francois, quick question.
Yeah.
The last curve when you lofted that surface was I guess a circle, right? Like we're
Yeah.
looking at it right now.
Yeah.
Does it matter where exactly you clicked on that circle?
I want to click to the far edge of it.
But what if you were to modify where exactly you clicked that edge, would it then terminate in a different spot than what we're
Yeah.
seeing here?
Yeah.
Oh,
Let me
wow.
let me
Okay.
let me
Okay.
show you that. So sorry, I'm just gonna move this. Oh, that's way too much. Yeah, all right. I'm just gonna live with that. Yeah, so let's look at that, Christopher. I'm just gonna select all of my curves and the leg and deselect the leg, and then I'm gonna group my curves. Right. So let's do another loft here. So if I click here, but then I click there, do you see how it's going to the opposite end? And then I'll click here, and then I'll click here, and then I'll click at this end.
Mm-hmm.
And now if I hit OK, I'm going to get kind of a wild shape. Yeah, it won't even do it, right?
Yeah, like the first ones, those, I mean, pretty clear that they would all need to be on the same side. But since it's a circle, that was sort of like where I was curious if there would be a different result.
It just won't let me.
I see. So it'll
Now,
automatically.
what I can do you see how I've got this next button? So let's say that I was a little sloppy in my clicking.
Mm-hmm.
say I did that, but then I got the wrong end of the
Yeah,
circle, right? When I hit OK, I can go next. You can't, well, you can't see it because I zoomed in. So I'll just use this. I'll just use this as an example. I'll just do
and I
two,
guess it's
right? I
it's
went
a
from
it's a
corner to
decision
that.
tree also. Sorry.
So if I go,
It's a-
I can reverse this and have it go from this point to that point, and I can navigate and reverse it again. Right. So I can play with these reverse and next and previous buttons to kind of realign my lofting, and then it's happy.
Mhm. And I think it's more of a decision tree situation also because when we were looking at it initially, it looked as though the last curve was a complete circle, but you made the decision to draw a C or a discontinuous circle so
Yeah,
that when you
because
snap,
that's how it does in real life. It
yeah,
when in
yeah,
the it doesn't quite complete the circle here. So that's why I drew a partial circle.
perfect. Okay, cool. Good to know.
Yeah, I was just kind of blindly following the model. So yeah, the points that you connect when you're lofting your rails really matters.
And if it were a circle, what would I mean, have you ever tried anything like that?
Yeah, no, you
Well,
can loft to a circle, sure. We'll just draw a circle. It's on the layer plane somewhere. We'll modify it, um, convert it to a NURBS, and then I'll go ahead and loft from here. From here, there. No, it doesn't like it.
yeah. Okay, cool. Got it.
Yeah, it needs to have a terminus.
An edge. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Francois, Francois, if you
Oh,
had not,
I'm
if you,
sorry, I could just, um, let me just, I could loft to two circles, right?
Mhm.
Let me do that,
Yeah, that makes sense.
no problem.
Yep.
I mean,
Perfect.
I don't want anyone to get the idea that you can't have a closed path to loft from. Sorry, I was talking over somebody.
Francois, I was going to ask you, if you had not converted one or both of the circles to NURBS, would you have been able to use the loft tool on it?
I don't think so. I think I have to have, but maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, no, it's got to be a NURB.
Thank you.
Yep,
Francois,
yep.
when you shifted over the leg, the 1/16 of an inch in both directions or in two directions, did it move the arcs that were associated with that NURBS too? It looked like they were offset.
No, it didn't. Because I just moved just the leg. The
Okay,
curves are completely disassociated. They're just like little guidelines.
they're just for a reference. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, Francois,
Yeah,
if you had left like a little 1/8 inch gap in that circle, then it would have worked.
yes. The last circles.
So when you tried to do the circle and it didn't work, if you left just a tiny little,
Right. I could have had the circle sweep
like a seam,
309.9 degrees instead of 360, made an arc. And
right?
yeah, would have worked.
Okay,
So I can connect closed paths to closed paths and open paths to open paths, but not open paths to closed paths.
right.
Okay.
Thanks, Francois.
Yeah. All right. So, hey, I got a leg. I should probably make a symbol out of it, but I'm not going to bother. My old friend duplicate array again. There we go. Oh, that's funny. I grabbed the wrong thing. There we go. Oh, that's hilarious. All right. So what I didn't do is rotate the duplicates by the duplication angle, which is why it did that. There we go. Now we're happy. And then last, I just need my little footrest. Actually, there's two more things. I've got a little footrest. Let's go to a front view. And I'll just draw a rectangle and I'll make it 3/4 of an inch by 1.5 inches. And I'll move it 9 inches off the layer plane. And I'll go ahead and move that over so that it's tacked to the inside. And then I will tried this before. We'll see if this works. I'll put a 2D locus kind of at the midpoint here and grab that. And let's go ahead and do a sweep. And I will make that segment 90 degrees. So that sweeps like that. I'm not sure why it did that. Let's try again. Oh, because I'm going to start my start angle at 45 degrees. Let's see what happens. Ah, that's even worse. All right. Well, I was trying to do this with a sweep. That's cool. I'll edit the sweep. And that is really funny. Yeah, I'm not going to do this as a sweep. I'm just going to do an extrusion. So it just goes there, and then I'll just measure with a line. Just draw a line here. From here to the inside of the leg. So that looks like it's 13.788 inches. So I'll just extrude that 13.788 inches. Go to top plan. And probably easier thing to do is just to
Could you just use the reshape tool by grabbing one of the vertexes?
could I use the reshape tool?
When you had that rectangle and you want to bring it across to the other leg, couldn't you just grabbed one of the vertices and pulled it over
Sure.
and stretch the rectangle?
Yeah. That would have been great. Space that. Don't need to distribute. Okay. Let's look at that. If that looks right. It's not quite right.
Shell it.
So I'm just using my align distribute command. In fact, let's go ahead and be clever about this and go ahead and set up multiple view panes. Okay, I don't need that one. And I don't need this one. I'll go ahead and put that in the right class. Yeah, there we go. So that looks okay. All right. And then I'll just go ahead and shell again. Actually, let's go ahead and fill it first. I'm just going to do an edge. And then I'll go underneath and shell. And you can see that by doing two adjacent faces, it hollowed it out. But I actually want this one and that one. Let's go to zoom in and hold down the Option key and get that back face and zoom out. I don't know if I'm going to be able to. Oh yeah, I can just grab it. Hold down the Shift key. So I'm grabbing 4 faces to create an angle. And now I can just go over here and duplicate array. And then, last, there's the rubber foot. It's over here. So let's see. Yeah, let's see if I can do my paint bucket mode. So I'll do that. And this one, and that one, and this one. And then I'll zoom in here and grab the fillet.
Had you turned all those shapes into NURBS, it looks like, is that right?
No, they're just 2D shapes.
They are, okay.
It's showing the angle because it's showing the arrow because I have under my object info palette show direction.
Oh.
That applies to lines as well. So there we go. I'll works better if I do half a profile. So I'll just draw a rectangle and clip. And then I'll drop a 2D locus and take these two things and do a sweep. Only I want a nice smooth sweep. Okay. So it looks like that. And let's give it a material. There we go. I don't know if that's the right material, but we'll just go ahead and we'll go with that. Okay. And sorry, wireframe that. And then let's go ahead and shell that. This time, maybe 1/8 of an inch. And just hit the top of that. And when I do a sweep, it's kind of has the wrong orientation. So I'll just go to a side view here, rotate it 90 degrees, kind of move it here. Right. And I'll probably need to be in top plane. Wow, it's pretty close. Let's zoom in over here. Yeah. Oh, this is kind of an imprecise thing. So you can see I'm kind of nudging it. Call it good. You can see where, I got a little bit of seam on that leg, right? I group that. It's a shell. Let's give it a slightly smaller thickness. That'll help. And yeah, you know, a lot of refinement you can do, obviously, if these things matter, but got your little corners here that don't quite meet quite the way they should, but you get the idea. I think I've got a finished one that's pretty much looks like this. Yeah, there it is. My final version when I did my little test. I mean, I don't know what could be more prosaic than a metal stool, but
Francois, did you end up combining the solids or adding the solids for the foot rail?
no, I don't think so. I think that one I just did as a sweep.
Ah,
I kind of tinkered with the radius until it was right.
gotcha.
But you know,
Okay.
I could have just done an extrusion and you know, there's like 12 different ways to have done that little foot rail. Uh, any other questions?
Why do you make it seem so easy?
Well, so what I figured out, Bill, is that it goes much better if I actually practice this first
Right.
and go through all the steps myself. Because I mean, I know all this stuff, right? But even though I know all this stuff, I still make mistakes, right? Or something doesn't quite work quite the way I remembered it. So, uh, it's you know, I think the key lesson that I would suggest is think through your order of operations so that you're not, you know, so that you don't have to do 12 different individual fillets when one will do. Because you subtract first and then, you know, shell first and then, or fillet first and then shell, right?
Right.
If you shelled first and then fillet, you'd have to fillet the outside and then you'd have to fillet the inside
Right.
to get all your little bends right. We got about 15 minutes. Are you all up for a complete, like, total left turn into something completely different, or do you want to linger on this for a bit?
Shake it up.
Yep, go for it.
I'm looking for it.
Okay.
What do you have in mind?
I had somebody ask about on YouTube, somebody commented about legends and how to do graphic legends. And so you know, I thought it'd be good to refresh that. So I've got this little project here. I think I've shown it before. We're waiting for permitting on this. And it's got a bunch of different doors and windows, obviously. So the way we do our schedules, right? We have a door and window schedule where everything's listed, of course, and then we have a graphic legend, which in the old days we would have to do by having a second instance of the door and window on its own layer that wouldn't populate the door schedule, and then you'd take an elevation. It was just this whole kind of workaround. Graphic legends have been around for a while. It's kind of trivial to do it for Windows because you know, windows are all by type, whereas doors have types, but they also have numbering. So I'll do a quick review on how to generate a graphic legend for your doors. And you know, if you can figure it out for doors, you can figure it out for windows. So first, I'm going to go to the dimension palette where I have a graphic legend tool. It looks like this little kind of 3x2 grid with maybe some numbers or something in it. It's this tool right here. And I'm just going to draw a rectangle and place the graphic legend. And so now I have a graphic legend in my drawing and it says graphic legend, but it doesn't really look like much. So the first thing I need to do with a graphic legend is to define the source. So I'm going to click on that button and I'm going to define a custom, there's a, you know, all sorts of any object that is legendable is here. So let's just go with that. Let's find, we can type door, and there we go. And so Vectorworks is already scripting, right, this door. Now, this is two separate buildings. This is two residences on one lot. So I might want to define the custom source and, for example, all type is door, but then have a filter that with a particular class or a particular layer so that I could have, say, one graphic legend for my unit 1 and a different graphic legend for unit 2. Here, they're all very consistent between the two units, so there's no real need to do that. So, but just to let you know, you can refine your criteria. You don't have to grab all the doors. You can take all the doors, you know, in your main building layer, for example. So that's what's going to go ahead and define the source. And then I can report by style or symbol name. So I don't want to do that. Let's create a new report by. And I can, sorry, edit that. There we go. And so there's a door record that, ignore that. Here's the record format. Every parametric object in Vectorworks, whether you know it or not, has a record format attached to it. Oftentimes they're invisible and under the hood and you don't know they're there, but that's what controls all the parameters of the parametric object. So in this case, here's the door object, and here are all the possible fields that define a door, and there's a lot of them. So it's tempting, you can start typing ID. But it's probably easier just to scroll down to the letter I and do ID label. Okay, and ascending. So I'll hit OK. And I'll recalculate. And so now it's giving me not what I expected, right? It's giving me all the doors in plan. So let's start by fixing that. So define the legend image. When I click on that, I can choose top plan or front or side, right? Right isometric, right? So obviously I'm gonna go with front. And I can define certain things like the hardware only shows up in a detail level high, but doesn't show up in detail level low or medium. So that's what these do. So I want to see everything. And I can set a scale. A 1/4 inch is a little big for this sheet. Let's just go with 3/16. We'll play with that. And it's giving me a preview, and there's 18 cells, right? Because there's 18 different doors in the schedule. And remember that I'm asking it to generate the legend based on the door ID number. So that's why it's giving me 18 things. But you can see that most of these are actually all the same type, and that's not what I want to see in a graphic legend. I want it to look like this, where I have only 3 different door types: a sliding glass door, a shower door, a solid 1-panel door, and a glazed 1-panel door. And that's it, right? So the way I did that is, let's go ahead and pop open the door schedule. And let's go ahead and select an item just for fun. Ah, there it is. Here's our glass door. Let's we'll isolate it with our friend the clip cube. There we go. All right, so there it is. Now, if I go to the settings for this door, under data, you'll see that Vectorworks gives me 10 user definable fields, user field 1 through 10. These are just kind of miscellaneous catch-all fields. And what I've done is I have chosen as a kind of an internal protocol to use user field 1 to define the door type, right? Now I could have picked another one of these fields, like stock number, I could have used that to describe the door type. Under notes, I could have defined probably not notes because I want actual notes there, right? So in my case, I use user field 1. You can use a different field for door type. These are your options. All right, so let's go back to that sheet. Oh, no, I think it was, what was it? No. Ah, there it is. It was on my floor plan. Silly me. So let's go back to the graphic legend, and under object info palette, let's go to define the legend source. And instead of reporting by ID label, let's scroll down here to user. That starts with a U, which is after T in the alphabet. There we go, user field 1. So now I'm going to ask the legend to display all the door objects in my file and to sort them not by the ID number 1 through 18, but by user field 1. And I'm going to sort them, I'm going to order them, the order in which they appear, also by user field 1. And hit OK. And you can see that now it's going to give me only 4 cells instead of 18. Ta-da! Now I can stretch that however I want it. I can make it a 2x2 grid or a 1x4 grid, right?
Wow.
Now, a couple more fine points here. Let's go ahead and edit the cell layout. So this little image and graphic legend tells me where the alignment of the object is in its cell. So that gray box is sort of a placeholder for the drawing of the door. So let's make it bottom center. So now the doors will be centered in their respective cells in the legend. And let's add a piece of text here and type. And this is just a dumb piece of static text. I'm just going to put it here. And then I'm going to option drag it over to here. Nudge this a little bit. And I'm going to make this left justified. That's already left justified, right? And this is not going to just be a dumb piece of text. It is going to be a dynamic text. So kind of like in a data tag. So I'm going to define the graphic legend field, and I'm going to choose instead of object param. Yeah, I think it's object parameters I want. I'll choose the door. Whoops. And scroll down here to my friend user field 1. And I'm going to, so this builds a little script for me, and I'm going to add it into here by clicking add to definition. So there, it's going to, in the field type, it's going to display whatever text is in the field user field 1 on a door object. Okay, and exit. It's thinking. Type A, type B, type C, type D.
Cool.
And then legends have annotations. So if I just double click on the legend, I can edit the cell layout, which is where we just were. I can edit the title layout, so I could give it a title, door legend, or I could edit the annotations. So let's edit the annotations. So there we go. I can go ahead and, give me a vertical dimension here. And I can lie and make it 80 inches. Let's make that this way. I can edit the annotations and that wherever I click, that's the annotations that I'm going to be. There we go. I think I can go ahead and do this too. And I could do horizontal annotations if I wanted to. Ah, no. No. I did that wrong. Yep. So I have to annotate each cell individually.
Makes sense.
You get the idea.
Mhm.
And you can play with the scale and so forth. And of course, you know, something like a window, that's trivial, right? Because the window number is the type.
Right.
And so I don't, you know, this, all I need to do here is label those. And then of course I can go ahead and make this cell width fixed. So it's, you know, if you are like me and you love grids, right? And then I can go ahead and again, edit the cell layout and just make this dynamic text. And see it's door user field. So that's not right. It should be window. That's why it's blank. And then this one would be the window ID because we ID our windows as types in our office. And add that to the definition, hit OK, exit. There you go, type A, type B, type C, D. And so on.
Francois,
Yes.
is there a way to add the to make the top of the slab show on these legends here? Let's say slab on this floor and slab on the floor above, so we can add those dimensions. to
Yeah,
rotate
that's a great question. Let's edit the cell layout. I want to say yes, and I saw that setting and I can't I can't remember where it is. Let me think about this for a second. Mm-mm-mm. I think so, and I can't remember off the top of my head how to do that.
Okay.
Maybe the thing to do is, I mean, I know I can do it simply by editing the cell layout and making this top, right? In the case of a in the case of a window, right? We typically are going to show those.
Right.
But if some of your windows have an 8-foot plate height and other windows have a 12-foot, that doesn't, I mean, it kind of does what you want, but not really. So you could, you know, you could go into your annotations and you know, draw a dimension string and draw a dashed line for the floor. That's kind of how I would probably, that would be a non-automatic way of doing that.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
That would be my first pass, is to do it that way. Okay, and now we are out of time.